Oh, hello. Today we're going to talk about the Kill Team Critical Strike tournament that took place yesterday at Warhammer World, and we're going to tell the tale of Zimbad's epic triumph over the metagame. So let's start with the boring bit with the overview. So we arrived on Saturday, the day before the tournament, about 2 o'clock. And I have to say, Warhammer World was really, really busy. There was a Warhammer Underworlds tournament going on, and just the shop was heaving. There were people getting demo games. It was really, really busy. We managed to meet up with a subscriber. He's called Torpor on the Discord. Nice chap, and that was really fortuitous because then there were 4 of us. So myself, Mrs. T.I., Zimbad, and Torpor, so we could have 2 practice games. So we had some practice games in Warhammer World. There wasn't a lot of space. I did have my Octarius in the car as kind of a backup, but in the end we played some games on. They've got some tables set up for Zone Mortalis type stuff for like Necromunda, or I guess Zone Mortalis games of Horus Heresy. So we played on them. It was a little bit weird and janky and not what you'd see in a competitive game, but it was interesting to have the practice game, and it was a fun little game. I managed to beat Torpor's Grey Knights reasonably handily, and I think I'm trying to remember. I think Mrs. T.I. beat Zimbad's Grey Knights on her side of the table with her Legionaries in the practice games. And then we decided to go off to have our tea at the Riverside Farm, which is next to the Travel Lodge, which is pretty close to our world. Just because I quite like the food at Bugman's, but Mrs. T.I. thinks it's gone downhill a little bit. In terms, she really likes chicken, and they've taken off a lot of the chicken options on the Bugman's menu, unless you're a child and you order the chicken nuggets off the children's menu. But your mileage may vary. Bugman's is quite expensive though, you know, it was cheaper. Plus, being as I was driving, once we got to the hotel, I could have a Guinness or 2 from the bar there, so that was good. And then we were on to the actual event itself on Saturday. Warhammer World was impeccable as ever, you know, in terms of the staff and the cleanliness and the terrain, just all the things. It is the best place to go to an event. Like, not to cast any aspersions really on independent events. Like, I know the people that run them put a lot of hard work into them, but you can't quite beat the attentiveness that you get from people who are paid just to be there all day and make your event the best event it can be, and just the amount of space that you get in Warhammer World. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. The fact that you get an entire 40k table with a kill team board in the middle, and that's all your space, right, for all your bits and pieces. That was brilliant. Lunch, as usual, was included in the ticket price, so it was £35, I think, for the ticket, and that included lunch in the staff canteen. It was roast beef or roast pork plus the drinks. I had roast beef this time, and it was very good, thank you. I think they always have like a Sunday roast on a Sunday, so that was good. The format of the event was pretty standard by now, so registration in Bugman's Bar, get a nice cheeky cooked breakfast from Bugman's. Rounds kind of start at 10 o'clock, officially start at 10:15, but the pairings go up at 10, you can start getting set up. One of the only organisational negatives that I'm going to say about Warhammer World is that they lay the terrain out on the tables really nicely, but then you've got to kind of move it to put your objective markers down on the table. It would be really nice if they provided you with the objective markers and they were already down there on the table. You know, I watched Glass Half Dead's tournament coverage of the tournament he ran in Bromley. I didn't go to that, but I watched his coverage, and one of the things that really he made a big point of the fact that he provided all the tables with his own objective markers, and he stuck them down to the tables under the terrain. And I'm like, why can't Warhammer World manage that? That is like a one organisational nitpick that I'll pick, is why am I having to move the terrain and put the markers down? So then we round 1, and then after round 1 we had our lunch. I've already spoken about the lunch. We had the painting competition, which I was hopeful about, but didn't. None of us got anywhere in the painting competition. Round 2. After round 2, there was a little break. We used that break to have a quick nose around the exhibition. So the Warhammer World exhibition is free on event days to event ticket holders. We didn't have a lot of time to go through it, but I was able to get through and look at the new Horus Heresy stuff, so that was good. And then round 3, and then after round 3, just a little bit of waiting around until the awards. And then we headed home. So let's look at the overall rankings. There's some quite interesting sort of stuff here that I'm going to flag up as I go along. So importantly, Paul Allen, aka Zimbad, is here in 3rd place. So he actually won a trophy. We're going to talk about Zimbad's games towards the end of the video. Really proud of Paul Zimbad. He's done really well, and he's kind of upset. The reason I say he's triumphed over the meta is he's done this with the Compendium team, which everybody, you know, all the other content creators that you'll hear talking about Kill Team are saying that the Compendium is worthless, and he's broken in. You know, he's the only Compendium team in the top 5. You have to go down here to Pete at number 8 to get to another Compendium team with the Hive Fleet, and then if you keep going looking for the Compendium teams, you're down here to Miguel with his Imperial Guard at number 13. Okay, and then you start to see more. There's Death Guard. Okay, there's my Death Guard, and so on. So there's Paul at number 3. So well done. Okay, that's really nice to see. I'm over here at 18. Beating me by just a single secondary is my lovely wife Helen. Okay, Mrs. TI at number 17. And then yeah, that was really decent spread. Of course, first we got Ryan from Command Point UK, really good player. John, this is John of Can You Roll a Crit, who came second. And then we got our very own Zimbad here. Yeah, and the only other thing to vaguely note is Warhammer's own Nick Bateman was playing, and he came 38th. But I think if you look, he was playing his Space Marines, his sort of Ultramarines, because I think he basically was playing in order to make up the numbers to an even number. He was playing, I think he was playing deliberately playing a weak team so he wouldn't come embarrassingly near the top. You know, so bear that in mind when you're thinking, oh, why has he done so badly? I think because he was playing with his Ultramarines that he loves and not really trying to win, because he was playing to facilitate the joy of others, right? Really interestingly, they sold 60 tickets. And these are not cheap tickets. They sold 60 tickets apparently, so they had 10 no-shows, which is, it's bizarre to me, right? Yeah, so 50. Well, no, 11 no-shows if Nick was in there stepping in as well, I think, which is what happened there. So that's, yeah. Anyway, let's talk about my game. So my first game was against a lovely guy called Peter. Peter was playing his Orc Commandos. It was Peter's literal first game of Kill Team ever. So I kind of tried to drop into teaching mode. I still wanted to win. Obviously, I was at a tournament. I wanted to win. I wanted to get as many points as possible. I tried to drop into a teaching mode and kind of help him out here and there where I could with what was going on. He said that he really enjoyed the game, and he thanked me for trying to teach him some stuff, so that was good. Really frustrated myself. Nothing to do with Peter. He was a lovely guy. I frustrated myself because right at the end of the game, I robbed myself of 2 secondaries. I had, what is it, seize position, hold position, seize ground, where you nominate a piece of heavy terrain and you have to finish the game near it. And I had a guy and he moved too far away from it, and on the last turn he didn't need to. He could have done what he was going to do from where he was or from a little bit nearer to the terrain, and I robbed myself of the 2 secondaries. And why am I complaining about that when I was a 17-6 win? Well, with a 3-round event, Warhammer World, you're going to have a lot of people on 3 wins, and they use secondaries as the primary tiebreaker, right? So the secondaries are the primary tiebreaker. They're really important. Dropping secondaries like that you could have scored is really punishing for where you're going to rank later on in the game. So at that point, I was beating myself up a little bit because of those 2 secondary points, but that was entirely my fault. Nothing to do with my opponent. You know, he was really polite, took it really well, and yeah, I enjoyed the game, enjoyed the chance to try and help him understand the very basics. I'm by no means am I a pro player. Game 2, sadly lost. So Paul was playing Deathwatch, so it was Compendium versus Compendium. I underestimated the Deathwatch a little bit. I kind of felt, well, I'm 6 Marines, he's 6 Marines, but my 6 Marines are a lot tougher than his 6 Marines, so I can play a bit recklessly, was what I thought. No, he cut me apart with his Deathwatch bolt guns and bolter discipline, and I just couldn't. For some reason, when it felt like when I was shotting him with the bolter, I would do like 3 or 4 damage. He'd shoot me with his bolters, and he'd kill a Plague Marine. There was an element of bad dice. Like, Plague Marines are a very swingy team with the with the disgustingly resilient. Like, sometimes they'll just survive when they really shouldn't, and sometimes they'll just fall over and die. And in this instance, they decided to fall over and die. I don't want to be purely blaming the dice, because obviously that's to rob my opponent of his skill. I did feel like there were some dice rolls that didn't go my way for sure. But really, my problem is I underestimated them. I started on my guys on engage for some reason, and I am steadily coming around to the point of view that if you're playing a 6-man team, any of the 6-man teams, any of the sort of Space Marine 6-man teams, you need to play super cagey first turn. Right? Have in your mind that your goal for the first turn is to keep your Marines alive and to position them, score secondaries, score primaries, do what you need to do, but as much as possible you need to keep yourself alive. I think, yeah, and then start playing to kill from game 2. Obviously, if your opponent hands you a gift, then you've got to take it, but I think I was too aggressive off the bat for turn 1. I left my guys too exposed, and they were cut down by Deathwatch Bolter Fire. You know, it was, in terms of models on the table, it was a close game. I was killing as many as I was killing as many as he was killing, more or less, but he was just managing to score the objectives. There was also an issue where I kind of misread the scenario a little bit, so I thought it was the one where you had to stay on the objectives to claim them for the whole game, and it was actually one of the ones where you could move off the objectives when you claimed them. So all in all, a loss from my own foolish error. 11-17. Oh, I should say about all these scores, mentally you should subtract 2 from all these scores, because what happened was they didn't press the setting that said we're not using the 2 victory points for painting. So everybody's score is inflated by 2, and the maximum score is 20. So if you are used to reading scores and having the understanding that the maximum score is 18, understand from these, just mentally subtract everything else. Yeah, so for example, in that first game, I effectively got 15, so I missed out on 3 secondaries. I can tell you where they were. They were the 2 that I didn't pick up at the end of the game, and one from, I always ended up, I don't recommend taking it, I always ended up with the secondary where you have to not die for 2 turns, not lose any casualties, and I always managed to not get that twice. I always managed to get it once or not at all. So my third game against Ray, Ray was playing Phobos. So I originally planned to take Phobos to this event. As people that view my hobby streams will know, I've been furiously trying to paint the Phobos. I just didn't get them painted up to the sort of standard that I wanted to get them painted up to before the event. So I decided to pivot to the Death Guard instead. But it means that I understood what the Phobos were going to do, what they were going to try and do, which helped. I think, in a way, Phobos just have a really bad matchup into Marines in general, but into Death Guard in particular. I think their lack of any kind of plasma gun or really high damage, high AP weapon hurts them the most when it comes down to fighting against Marines. So it really did struggle. Didn't help that I was able to, like, the first model of his I was able to take out was his mine layer, and yeah, so it was just a pretty dominating win for me against Ray. And I did have one. So the banner guy, in Death Guard, when his banner's activated, he gets to reroll 1s and 2s on his Disgustingly Resilient. And my banner guy just, in a lot of the games, he just walked into the middle of the board, turned on his banner. Generally, there was a primary in the middle of the board. Generally, I would have central control, and he just managed to sit there for 2 turns and go, yep, there's your 2 central control victory points, while the enemy kind of poured fire into him. And it would be great as well in turn 2, when if he was still alive. First thing I would do is activate him and do dig in as well, so he'd have Def 4. He'd be sitting there with Def 4, re-rolling his 1s and 2s on his disgustingly resilient, just sort of soaking up bullets like a sponge. I love that banner guy for that reason. Yeah, the banner has an aura of blue. I think trying to fit all your guys in the aura to give loads of them the bonus is kind of foolish, but doing it with just the banner on his own and making him kind of this amazing tank is a really good strategy. So those are my games with my Death Watch. Generally speaking, with the Death Watch, with the Death Guard, I keep saying Death Watch, I've got mild dyslexia. With the Death Guard, I would generally be taking the Great Plague Cleaver, which is the one represented here by the scythe. Okay, so I would generally be taking the Great Plague Cleaver. I would generally then take the Plasma Gun, the leader obviously with the Plasma Pistol and the Power Fist, the banner, I would take the banner, and 2 guys with bolters here and here. Yeah, so generally speaking, if I in all those games, I didn't take either of either the Plague Knives guy I didn't take, or the heavy Blight Launcher. I didn't take that either. I might have taken them in other games, but that was the team I took in most of my games, and I had a great time. Against Marines, I would tend to take the Bell, 2 crack grenades and virulent rounds. And then when I played against the Commandos, I instead took the Bell, 3 blight grenades. I think that's right. And maybe the virulent rounds as well. Yes. Okay. So yeah, those were my matches. Mrs. TI's matches. So obviously I've spoken to Helen about what she did and what she didn't do. I can't go into quite as much detail. So her first game was against... So first of all, I should say that she was playing as a matter of pride. All her guys, because she loves word bearers, were marked with the mark of Chaos Undivided. So she refuses to take a different Chaos mark, which might have more advantageous rules, because she loves the word bearers and they worship all the Chaos equally. So she took the mark of Chaos Undivided. Her first game was against Andrew. I think Andrew Westwood. I think the BCP's just truncated his surname there. He was also playing Legionaries. So what she said to me was he was playing pure Nurgle Legionaries, and in her opinion, having done practice games into my Death Guard, she feels that pure Nurgle Legionaries are just like rubbish Death Guard. Now, I know that's controversial because I know there are people on the internet who are all about the pure Nurgle Legionaries, but her feeling genuinely was that they felt like she was playing into rubbish Death Guard. She said she really enjoyed getting the mirror match for her first match because she's not played that many games recently, and she knew exactly what was going on because she'd learned her team, so she knew what the opponent was going to try and do, which made the game much less kind of mental labour for for her, so that was good. The only reason she lost 2 points on secondaries was because she took one of the Legionary secondaries. I think the one about defiling corpses. It's just awful. This is her view. The Legionary secondaries are just really bad, and you should never take them. And she came to terms with that throughout the tournament. She's not a fan of those Legionary secondaries at all. She thinks that they're a hindrance, and you're better off not bothering with them. Game 2 was against Robert Smith, and Robert Smith had Vet Guard, and I have to tell you, all the way up in the car, me, Mrs. TI and Zimbad were trying to talk about, okay, what are we going to do if we come up against Vet Guard? Because for our money, Vet Guard are the bogeyman of Kill Team at the moment. Vet Guard are the team to beat. Vet Guard are the team that I am the most afraid of by far. None of us really have an answer still as to what you do into Vet Guard. I mean, if you think about my games, I played once against Commandos, once against Phobos Marines, once against Deathwatch, and I played my practice game against Grey Knights. And all my practice games before the tournament were against Legionaries and Grey Knights, because that's what. So I'm very used to that 6 model meta now, and so we all kind of thing. So suddenly being hit with a meta team like Vetguard, she wasn't sure what to do. The problem is the usual problem. You know, they can spam out activations with their fodder, their useless characters, until you've activated all of yours, and then they can pick their shots to pop out and pick you out with snipers and plasmas and grenade launchers and things like that. It doesn't help that the Warhammer World boards are very dense, and this particular game, I believe, was on Octarius. And at Warhammer World, the Octarius, the playmat that comes on the board doesn't have the doors shown on it. And, you know, Helen asked her opponent, oh, are we using the doors or not before deployment? Because obviously she heard my vague rant about doors and people's different expectations. So it was very much fixing her brain. Going to ask this before we deploy so that we both know. And Rob, and fair play to him, perfectly valid, was totally insistent. You know, it's not on the piece of paper. I come from a competitive card gaming background. You know, it's not on the piece of paper, so we're not doing it. It was on the piece of paper, we'd do it. So there was no room for argument. There were no doors. And it just meant the terrain was very, very dense. Helen found it very hard to get her combat guys through the terrain, and she was properly slaughtered by the Vetguard. Onto her game 3 against a guy called Max Sheridan. Helen tells me that her game against Max was the most fun she'd had in the whole day. It was a really, really fun, even game. Both played, got 6 on the primary. Helen managed to max her secondaries, and she credits with that as being because she didn't take the bespoke secondaries. And she speaks really highly of the Shrive Talon, especially when she's playing against APL 2 teams. She got her Shrive Talon on the central objective. That meant it was really difficult for the Tau to interact with the objective, and it was really so it was the one where you nominate an objective, and that objective every turn you tag it, you get a command point and a victory point. And the Tau, because it would take them an extra APL to use the objective, they just couldn't use the objective. The drones counted as 0 APL when they were on the objective, so to get control of that objective they needed to get 2 Tau into the middle of the board where they were able to be killed by Legionaries, because there was no cover. In common with all the Warhammer World maps, they always try and leave the middle fairly bald, I think, so there's not a lot of cover there. So she was just able to dominate the middle, which really, really good, really, really fun game, she said. And it was really even as well, because of course it works both ways. If you're in the middle, then you're gonna get shot as well by the Tau. So yeah, good fun games there. And finally, what you're probably all here for, and I've tried to keep you on to the end, Zimbad's games. So Zimbad's first game was against Adam Richardson, who was playing Pathfinders. Zimbad's kind of recipe for winning against Pathfinders, you know, you want to conceal and use Tide of Shadows in turn 1, and you kind of hope that the scenario will force the Tau to come out for the objectives. And then you just destroy them with your Stormbolters. Those Stormbolters are ridiculously powerful, right? It's just a bolter, but you've got those rerolls. And Tau are made of paper mache, you know, 7 wounds, and they just dissolve when you fire Stormbolters at them. Yeah, so I'll go through Zimbad's team. He takes 5 Grey Knights, obviously. They've all just got the standard force power sword weapon things, the normal ones, and they've all got Stormbolters, so nothing specially wants to take he wants to use Bolter Discipline to its fullest effect, so we're not using any of the gunners. On his sergeant, he always takes that ammo that basically makes it into a pseudo heavy bolter, and he always takes 2 of those things that give you free psychic power casts as well. He did say he had an entirely different set of equipment worked out for if he came up against other Grey Knights or demons or something where he could use anti-psychic grenades, but it was not to be. Zimbad did tell me he was only able to score 2 TAC Ops points though in his first game, so that the Pathfinders managed to deny him a lot of his TAC ops. I don't have total detail of how all the games went. If you're desperately curious, because I know a lot of people have gone, oh wow, Zimbad came third with Grey Knights. I encourage you to come and join the Discord and ask him. You know, the Discord link's in the description, or I have persuaded him to go on to Glass's Discord as well, so he's around there. You can ask him for hints and tips, things like that. Zimbad's game 2 was against a guy called John. John was playing Commandos. All Zimbad told me was that the Commandos had a really strong turn 1, managed to kill a couple of Grey Knights, but then in turn 2 the remaining Grey Knights, no, he managed to kill 1 Grey Knight, must have been, and then in turn 2 the remaining 4 Grey Knights managed to kill 7 Commandos just with that Bolt of Discipline, with those re-rolls, you know, and being able to put out the pain. The Storm Bolters really do just do a lot of work for the for the Grey Knights. And game 3 was into Pathfinders again. So another note that I got from Zimbad was that Tau strategies, they basically rely on 1 or 2 core strategies. You can basically negate them with Astral Aim, and so if you have guys with the 1 free cast ability, then that means that you can Astral Aim and still have 2 APL knocking around for doing Bolt of Discipline, which is really key. And once you've killed the Tau rail rifles, it's pretty difficult for Tau to actually hurt a Grey Knight. And they really don't stand up to Storm Bolters. And in that last game, Paul managed to max his TAC ops. Yeah. So that's basically the full rundown of our time at the Warhammer World Kill Team Critical Strike event on the 19th of June. I'm really happy for Zimbad to win a trophy. I was gently annoying him in the car on the way back because they've changed the trophies this time round. If you've been to one of the events before, I'm pretty sure they used to get one of the full gold, silver and bronze, like hand gripping a giant chainsword as your trophy for winning the actual tournaments, and then the glass trophies were just for the painting and the most sporting. This time around it seems to be the glass trophies for podiuming in the tournament as well as for the painting and the most sporting. But he's very happy to have won with his glass trophy. I know the comments are going to be full of people going, not least Major Tom, who's probably already typed it by this point, like, oh, how much can you really draw from a 3-round event? Yeah, that's true. But you go along knowing it's going to be the 3-round event. Everybody knew it was a 3-round event. If they were deeply unhappy with attending a 3-round event, they wouldn't have been there. So I don't think anybody can really complain like, oh, it was only 3 rounds, so I was robbed because I also did really well and da-da-da-da. At the end of the day, that was the game, the mode of play that you signed up for. You knew it was going to be 3 rounds, and you knew that it was likely going to be decided by 1 or 2 secondaries either way. I mean, for crowd, Zimbad, if he'd scored like 3 more secondaries or something, if he'd scored more secondaries in his first game, he'd have come second and he'd have beat Crit John from Can You Roll a Crit down into 3rd place, and that would have been interesting, I'm sure, for the community at large. So yeah, it really does come down to a knife edge of those secondaries, but that is the way that they run their tournaments at Warhammer World, and everybody knows that. I felt that I gave a decent accounting of myself after my disastrous outing at the Teams event with my novitiates, having a go with the Death Guard. I know to win 2 out of 3 is about what I expect to do. I was pretty happy. I think the Death Guard suit me a bit more. Part of me is worried because if that is it now, if I just decide that I'm just playing the 6 wound teams, the 6 model teams, the APL3 teams, the more robust teams, like part of me wants to be able to finesse a win with that Guard or Novitiates or any of these teams that are really highly regarded as being the most powerful teams in the hands of the really skilled players. But I think I'm probably going to try Phobos next time. At least it's a bespoke team, but it is still going to be a 6 model team. We'll see how they go. The last thing is, this is Mrs. Tabletop Impulse's last event for a while, so we're expecting a baby in September, and so once so unless they announce another tournament for like in a week, it will be impossible for Mrs. TI to go off to events. Depending on when they announce the next one for, I might be able to go or I might not. So it just depends on what happens with that. Obviously, I won't be going to any gaming events in September, but we'll see what happens. Probably not in October, but by November I could probably get a 2-day pass. So we'll just have to see what goes on there. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the video and enjoyed the content, please do give the video a subscribe. That really helps me out, trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. That would be really cool. Please do give the video a thumbs up as well, but I won't actually hit the bell because hitting the bell is really annoying and makes my videos infest your Windows taskbar, and honestly I wouldn't wish that on anybody. I need to navigate to various channels and unclick the bell so that I'm not doing something and then getting pop-ups from Spiky Bits and people like that, which isn't what I want in my life. And yeah, if you're buying anything, the Element Games link. If you want to come and chat to Zimbad, the Discord link. And other than that, hope you have a really great day. Cheerio, everybody.